text me asking if I was wanting to do this. I immediately said yes, and then about 5 seconds later, I almost immediately regretted it. But I can tell you this morning, it was well worth it, especially a lot of the growing and learning I've gotten to do throughout this time in preparation. You've heard it said, but I say to you. Now, as we reach this portion of the Sermon on the Mount, I want all of you to go through and keep in mind that as we go through and look at this over the next several weeks and the previous weeks, that he didn't deliver this in sections. He delivered this in one continuous sermon that went through and just was universal for all of us. So as we look back at last week to tie it back together, Josh imprinted on our minds that salt is salty, light shines, and disciples are disciples. How can we continue that inward inspection and reflection of ourselves and ensure our light is shining from the inside out? Now, last week was then concluded by verse 20. But I warn you, unless your righteousness is better than the righteousness of the teachers of religious law and the Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Now, as we go through and look at Matthew 21 through 48, he's wanting to go through and take us to the heart of the issue. What's it going to take to actually make it to heaven? How to transform our hearts and our lives to go through and be more like him. So what's he going to do? He's going to go through and take 6 real-world examples to spur us into reflection of ourselves. Now, the examples that he has in the Scripture is anger, lust, divorce, oaths, revenge, and loving your enemies. Now, he's going to begin every passage with the statement of, "You have heard it said." What's he mean by that? Well, this is where Jesus is going to go through and he's restating the commandments that was from God, given through Moses to the Israelites. He's going to mention this because he is recognizing that there's a gap. There's a missing piece that we need to go through and elevate ourselves to be like him. He's recognizing that we can't just treat symptoms, but we have to get down to the heart of it all. And in the examples, he wants to go through and challenge us by elevating that law to impact our lives, not just on Sunday morning or on Tuesday or Saturday night, but every day of the week for the rest of our lives. So as we go through, we're going to look at anger right now. So we're going to look at verse 21 that was just read. You have heard that our ancestors were told, "You must not murder. If you commit murder, you are subject to judgment." Murder's bad, right? It's pretty easy to understand. It'd be a lot better place in this world if murder did not exist to begin with. But as we go through and look at verse 22, he says, "But I say to you, if you are even angry with someone, you are subject to judgment. If you call someone an idiot, you are in danger of being brought before the court. And if you curse someone, you are in danger of the fires of hell." Murder is merely the external demonstration of the internal anger that we have, that all of us can carry. It's a stomach ache. Now, I don't know if you guys remember this. There's a commercial going around a couple years ago where this guy goes into the gas station. He's looking for a quick snack. The only thing he sees is some gas station sushi. He grabs it, hops in the car, eats it, has to pull over pretty soon later because he's got such bad stomach ache. I don't know what's happening after that. It's a stomach ache after eating that gas station sushi. He's showing us that not just action is sinful, but emotion can be sinful. Attitude can be sinful. Well, what do I do if I'm angry? What if I do if I'm frustrated? If I'm having a hard time with somebody, somebody's getting on my nerves, or I'm getting on their nerves. He tells us that too. So if you're presenting a sacrifice at the altar in the temple, or if you're sitting here with all of your friends and your church family worshiping God, and you suddenly remember that somebody has something against you, leave your sacrifice there, go and be reconciled with that person. Then come and offer your sacrifice to God. What's he mean by that? I can tell you when I first read this a couple times, I had to ask Josh, what does that mean? He said, go talk to him. Go have that conversation. You need to be prepared to go through and have those difficult conversations. I was just thinking about that. Man, that is a lofty goal. Because I don't want to talk to anybody that's making me mad. And that's a big step if somebody has anger to you. I know as I go through, when I was writing some of this, I kept thinking about two different people at work. And then they just grind my gears. And I have a really hard time even talking to them, let alone, because they just seem to go through and find my faults and present it. So what do? I go through and I'm going to go through and retaliate back. I'm going to talk to them, and with my intentions, I'm going to make it difficult for them. I'm going to go through and try to cause anger for them. I'm going to retaliate in a way that makes me right to myself. That ain't right. Or, another one that I have, because he's a lot better arguer than I am, I'm just going to go through and I'm just going to say what I have to, just get through the rest of the day and stay away from him. I know I'm going to have to see him tomorrow. We'll resume tomorrow. This is basically the same as taking Tums every time you eat that gas station sushi and you're having a stomach ache. You're just, well, keep eating it, we'll take Tums, we're going to go back and forth, we're just going to keep dealing with the problem. Jesus doesn't want you to keep taking Tums. He wants you to stop eating the sushi. He wants you to go through and figure out what the root of the problem is. Now, it's a big jump from down here, where the heart of the issue is, and up here, where he's saying you need to be operating. So how do you close the gap? I know I'm not able to close that gap myself. Maybe some of you can get it a little bit closer, because I'm a long ways away. But some of you might be able to get a little bit closer. But how do we get the rest of the way? How do we get there? Pray. You got to ask Jesus to look inside you with you, heal your heart, help it evolve, and make sure that you're able to go through and prepare yourself for those conversations. To make sure that your intentions match what you're trying to accomplish. He wants to go through and look inward to help pull those roots of anger out. Then you're going to go and have these difficult conversations with those individuals. You're going to have the awkward conversations. There's going to be some bitterness in there. It's not going to be fun. Think if all of us were able to go through and do that. If everybody in this room was able to go through, if we had issues with anybody within our church family now, if you were able to go through and walk up, tell them, I'm praying for you, I have these issues, sit down, resolve it, recognize all the issues, both of you are able to go through, talk to Jesus about it, to open up your heart, then go and continue that tough conversation, deal with the bitterness and awkwardness, and then accept the result that Jesus has for us. Think how great of a place this could be. And not just here in the church, maybe in Burlington town, Coffee County, the U.S. If we were able to go through and have those difficult conversations with the intentions of Jesus, think how much better this place would be. At this time, I'd like you to go through right now, or go through and type it into the chat online, open my heart. Now, as we continue to study the sermon, we arrive at the last of the examples, the final 6, which I think is kind of the epitome of all of the examples that are leading into it. Loving your enemies. You have heard it said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say, love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. In that way, you will be acting as a true child of your Father in heaven. For he gives the sunlight to both the evil and the good, and he sends rain on the just and unjust alike. If you love only those who love you, what reward is there? How hard is that? Even tax collectors can do that. If you are kind only to your friends, how different are you from anyone else? Even pagans do that. We are to be perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect. God made us in his image. And we are designed to go through and demonstrate that, to mirror that, and reflect that to all those around us and who see us externally. But these issues of the heart, the problems that we have, the anger, the lust, the divorce, everything else that goes through that he has the example of, goes through and makes it difficult for us to reflect that. It hinders our ability to be able to go through and reflect his image. If we're not able to do that, then how are we different from anyone else? Aren't we just like everyone else? We're going to fall backwards easy. We're going to love just the people that love us. We're going to care for the people that only care for us. We're only going to be kind to people that are kind to us. But how is that different? How does that make us in the image? Now, that's wonderful. If you can keep loving the people that love you, that's great. Keep it up. We should be doing that every day still. But we don't want to go through and make that sound bad, because it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. But is it good enough? Is it enough to close the gap from here to where we want to be? Then what do we do with the people that want to cause us harm? What do we do with the people that have hurt us? Or the people that hurt our friends, our family? I can't do that. As we go through and I've looked and reflected a lot of this message after Josh had me go through and do this, he asked me probably 4 weeks ago. I should have started then. But instead I started about 3 or 4 days ago. But I was able to do a lot of research. Josh was a great mentor during this process. He gave me a lot of documentation, a lot of books to read in. Way more than I could even come close to getting through. So I handpicked a couple. They will start looking into it. And that reflection time, just in the last 3 or 4 days, has honestly already started to change my life. I realized how imperfect I am. I got a long ways to go. I do just love the people that love me. I couldn't think of examples of the time that I have prayed for somebody that really hurt me or my family. While I was preparing for a lot of this, Sarah and I sat down, and Sarah loves crime documentaries. Dateline, all of the above, some of them are on Netflix. I take it or leave it. We're sitting there, I was chasing kids around, Sarah was really enthralled in this one show. I was doing stuff on my phone, I was jacking around at work, anything else I could. I look up just at the moment where this woman is sitting at a table with her hands holding another man in an orange jumpsuit across the table. You can tell, obviously, they're in a prison setting. Before I could even ask, what's the show about, what happened, who killed who, what kind of mix-up was there to go through and cause all this drama, this lady starts praying for the man across the table. She starts asking to forgive him, for God to forgive him, and God to forgive her for the anger in her heart for that. I asked Sarah, well, what happened? What happened? She said, well, that guy just went and killed her son and her husband only 6 months prior. How do you do that? How can you sit there and thank somebody or wish for forgiveness for somebody that took something like that away from you? I know I couldn't do that. Then, after Sarah and I had some more conversation about it, she reminded me of the Lent study we did. Case for Easter. I don't know if some of you were in that, some of you weren't. But as we go through and we study through that period of time, we learned about the pain and the suffering that Jesus had to go through. The payment that he had to go through and give for us. And while he was on the cross, he was asking God to give forgiveness to those that persecuted him. So as we were sitting there watching the show, I was thinking, what does that even look like? And Sarah looked, Jesus. He took it all, and he didn't say one thing wrong, or to go through and punish any of the people that are doing it to him. If there's an example of loving your enemies, that's it. Like, that is the perfect one to go through and try to chase after, try to achieve. Now, Jesus can go through and demonstrate the love for all of God's people in the most extreme way possible. Can we not go through and show it the simplest? Start working on that? Can we try to love one another? Can we work at praying for those that mean us harm, or to others that we love or care about? Can we look at what Jesus has taught us here, done for us on the cross, and try to actively be like that? Can we pray to Jesus to open up our hearts and ask him to make us like him? Now, at this time, I'm going to invite you to go through and write down, or go through and type in the chat, make us like him. Because in the praying for those people, in the working it out with the people that have something against us, or the ones that we have something against, and the trying, the attempting, the actively pursuing of being like him, is where God is going to change our hearts. That is where, through the hard work and dedication and the following of Jesus, we are going to be able to go through and recognize the internal change of our heart. That's going to be hard. And I can tell you, I still have a hard time with those two folks at work. I have a hard time praying for one of them, I can tell you that. But even in the last 3 to 4 days, I found myself putting myself in their shoes, trying to understand where their bitterness is coming from. Why do they not like me? I'm a likable guy. Sometimes. Sarah will say different. But what's it going to take? As I went through, like I said, all the reflection that I've had in the last few days has honestly began to change my life. If I have such a long ways to go, as I've said, and some of you are definitely closer to this image than I am, can you still go through and try to keep actively working on yourself? So I ask you to go through and ask yourself and reflect on yourself, look at yourself in the mirror, and ask yourself these questions of, how am I reacting to people who are going to anger me, who frustrate me, who are bitter to me? How am I handling just the overall situations? What is my heart saying outside of what I'm saying to them? Because if you're still saying nice things, and you're going through and you say, hey, how's it going? Oh, you son of a... I mean, that's the change we want to go through and look at. Am I portraying the image of God internally and externally? Then I want you to go through and pray to Jesus to open your heart and make us like him.